Hey, everybody, and welcome again to the Hook Podcast.
The Hook.
I'm your host,
The Hook,
Keith Butler, with my co-host, Jeffrey Lowe.
Right. It's called The Hook.
Yeah, I said The Hook.
Or two black guys in the mic.
No, it's just The Hook, Jeff.
The Hook, okay.
I know I stumbled a little bit there at the beginning, but I think those who have listened to us long enough know what I meant. You all know I meant The Hook. The Hook. The Hook. Are we clear on that,
The Hook.
Mr. Lowe?
The Hook.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Powered by True Detroit.
Yeah, True Detroit.
And Detroit United.
Detroit United.
That's right.
Yeah, well, we're coming to you again, as always, from the Six Hole Studio. And, Jeff, it's a gorgeous day out there today, man.
Man,
you know?
it is,
You know,
especially for golf.
Yeah, it rained a little bit yesterday. A few people out there got rained out left, but today, man, it looks beautiful. You know, the boys out there stroking it. And we saw a great putt just a few minutes ago, man. That must have been, about 25, 30 footer?
Hey,
Just
put it
dropped
in like a pro, I tell you.
Oh, yeah. A couple of amateurs.
Right.
But anyway, you guys, we got a good show for you today. It's something that everybody has done at one point and another. We grew up doing it, and now it has become a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we're talking about cycling, riding bikes, something as simple as that.
And it's a great day for cycling, too.
Yeah. And our guest today is Richard Summersett. He's an avid bicyclist and a cyclist, I guess. And he's dressed for the part today. And he said once we finish the show, he's hitting the road downtown Detroit somewhere with his group. So, hey, Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh,
and like you said, it is a beautiful day to be outside, either on the golf course or on the streets of Detroit, two-wheeling it. That's where I'm headed, like you said, when we leave here. So we're going to talk a little bit about my joy of cycling and try to spread the joy to all of you out there listening, because like Keith said, we've all grown up riding bikes, and it's what they call a lifelong sport. You get out there, ride a bike, and just enjoy being on the bike the same way you did when you were 10 or 11 years old. I'm a little older than that now, but I still enjoy riding a bike, and just want to try to share some things on how people can get out and share some of that enjoyment.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so first of all, let's talk about the type of bikes. I've got a couple of 10 speeds or 12 speeds. You know, they're just hanging up in the garage. I hadn't used them in a couple of years. I use mine just for recreation. Are there specific bikes that you guys use for riding long distances or racing and stuff? I mean, we've seen Lance Armstrong and all that. What's the difference with the bikes?
Well, I'd say if like in your case, if you've got a bike that's a bit older and you rode it years ago, there are different types of bikes, but there's no minimum requirement. If you've got an older bike and you're wondering, I haven't ridden this thing in 6, 7, 10 years, I can't ride this. What I would suggest is take it into a local bike shop, let them take a look at it, tune it up, and they'll fix it up and get you back in shape to ride. Depending on how old the bike is, it might need some new wheels, new chain, little grease here, and you'll be out there rolling in no time. But the other thing you might want to look at is, does that bike still work for you? Does it fit? Number one. Depending on how long it's been since you've ridden the bike, it might be that it's not the right size. That would be one of the first things I say. No matter what type of bike you have to make sure you're fitted for it. And that's something, again, they can do in a local bike shop, because even I've had that done on the various bikes that I've ridden. It's like I'll buy a bike, and the first thing I do is take it into a shop, and they have a whole science behind making sure, the seat is the right height, and you're high enough and forward or back enough. So, but in terms of what types of bikes, so the older 10-speed bikes, most likely they're made of steel. Yeah. They're going to be heavier. Then you've got aluminum bikes, a little lighter, and some of the newer bikes, most of them are aluminum. And then for those who do a lot of long distance riding or racing, they're carbon bikes, and those are super light. You have to be careful with those because they're carbon, and you really can crack the frame of that bike rather easily.
You hit a pothole or something.
Yeah. Or people will take bikes, and you've seen bike carriers on the back of cars, and you strap them down, and if you pull that strap too tight on a carbon bike, you'll crack that frame.
It's that fragile, huh?
It is very fragile. But for the everyday person who wants to get out there and get back into cycling and biking, you don't need a fancy bike. You want to, of course, stay within your budget. Make sure the bike is well maintained and is properly fitted for you. and you get out there and do a little bit at a time if it's been a while since you've been on the bike, and don't hold yourself accountable to, I got to do X number of miles or I got to do certain speed. I tell people who are getting back into biking or just getting into biking, start in your neighborhood. Just ride around the block.
Okay,
see how that feels.
Hold that thought, Richard. I want you to pick up where you left off because you know I'm going to pick with you right now.
Here we go. Here we go.
Now, you hear what he said. Don't hold yourself accountable to how far you had to drive. We're going to talk
how
about
big
that.
is your block? Let's see.
Look, I'll be good to get out my...
You got a big block here.
I'll be good to get out my driveway, but let me tell you about Richard.
That's cool, too.
Richard, what was that you had on the back of your car that stick in the window?
Oh, now, let me explain.
What is that? What is that?
Let me explain.
Let's just talk about that.
Everybody's seen these stickers on the back of people's cars
He's
and the
beating
windows.
around the bush right now, yeah.
26.2. That means they ran a marathon. 13, the half marathon. Little stickers just to be proud of your accomplishment. It just so happens I have over the years grown to a point where I did what's known as a century ride, which is a 100-mile ride.
100 miles, people.
Now,
I can't walk 2 blocks. He's riding 100 miles. Talk about that.
Well, that's that. But from here to Flint, no. How far is that?
I don't know. I just keep going till my odometer says I'm there. So,
okay.
but the thing with that is that's something you grow into. Mm-hmm. There was a time, and I've been cycling. So I call it seriously, or really getting back into some regular cycling since maybe 2011. Mm-hmm. And I went out and did a little ride, what I call a bike ride. It turned out it was about 4 or 5 miles. I thought I was going to die. Everything
when you
hurt.
First started.
My chromosomes hurt.
This is when you first started, right?
Yeah. So you grow into something like that. 100-mile ride. There's proper nutrition, proper training. Mm-hmm. For me, it's something for me. I have to plan. I don't sit out on a day like today and say, "Well, this is beautiful. I think I'll go ride 100 miles." Mm-hmm. No, you have to be prepared for it and grow into it.
Right.
There were days that I would look at people I knew who were regularly riding century rides, 100-mile rides, and I'd say, I'd ask the same questions everybody asks when you hear that. It's like, in one day, yes. Doesn't your the seat hurt? Doesn't your butt hurt? Yeah. Do you stop? Many times. So there's a proper training regimen to do that, and you don't have to be a professional athlete to do it. You just have to know the right way to go about doing it. And I wouldn't suggest anybody go out until they've done it, and gotten acclimated to it. Don't go out and try to do that as one of your initial rides, and don't do it alone.
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit about
I'm going
that.
to start with the slow roll.
I was going to say, that is a great ride.
Listen, Jeff is going to start with the no roll. We're talking about the slow roll. There's going to be no roll with Jeff. Trust me.
Look.
No, I'm getting me like you said, a bike that fits.
Yeah.
I've been looking at bikes. I've had some great bikes growing up, and as an adult. I know that I want a fat tire bike.
Okay.
So I get sort of like mountain bikes, like something that I can afford, like you said. Mm-hmm. But I saw a great bicycle recently. It's called the Fat Tire Trike.
That's a
3-wheel, man.
It's all about comfort, and
that is comfortable, man.
That's a delivery bike, man. What you can do? Put a wood carton on the back and a basket on the front and deliver milk.
It's comfortable, man. I'm telling you.
Some of those trikes have been tricked out. It's comfortable, and depending on how comfortable you are on 2 wheels, why not have 3 wheels? And you don't have to worry about maintaining your balance.
Right.
Sit back and enjoy the ride. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some fellas on trikes that they can make that thing move too.
Yeah.
But I talked a little bit about the composition of bikes and what they're made out of. But the other thing are different styles of bikes. So you talk about a trike or a fat tire bike, and I know people who ride in the winter months here in Detroit, and I know that seems like, on a bike in the snow, in the ice. And so there are different type of bikes, different type of tires that help accommodate that too. Mm-hmm. Fat tire bikes, that's one of the ones you'll see a lot of in the wintertime for that reason. Mm-hmm. Bigger tires, more traction. Even if it's not a trike, you've got more comfort and safety in the winter months on that type of bike. So in the summer, you'll see different styles of bikes too. They're 10 speeds, racing bikes, cruisers, all different types of bikes. And it all depends on what type of riding you think you're going to do. If you're going to do long distance road cycling, then yeah, you want a road or a racing bike. But you like slow road, there are a lot of different groups in the city of Detroit. Cycling has taken off in Detroit, and thankfully the powers that be have helped implement some infrastructure in the roads and the bike lanes and things. We just need the those in the automobiles to just be a little more accommodating and recognize we're out there. So
I get the infrastructure, but sometimes you're driving down and they've changed the lanes so much that you've lost half of the street because they're putting in bike lanes now. And that personally, it drives me up a wall. I mean, I get it. And I appreciate it.
Share the road, brother. Yeah. Share the road.
Thank you.
But sometimes
Share
it's just like, can't you just ride up on the sidewalk or something like that? But
well, in addition to that, some of the infrastructure changes that have been made have to do with more cycling paths through the parks and like the not just Belle Isle, but Belle Isle as well as the metro parks. They've all got nice pathways. So, you load your bike up and go right out there. If you're leery about riding in the street with traffic, and I would encourage you to definitely hit Belle Isle. It's a beautiful place to ride. Just be careful of the wind on the backside, I'll warn you. But there are, roadways on Belle Isle that are on the inside. You're not out by the water, so it's not as windy. So that's a beautiful place to ride. And some of the state parks and metro parks, like I said, you don't have to be out there in traffic. If you are going to ride in the street, I would say think about finding a local group to ride with. It's much safer if you're in a group of 15 or 20 people than if you're out there by yourself. If I'm in a car, because I'm a cyclist, my attention span is more tuned to looking for cyclists. And so I'm out there and, if I cross an intersection, it's ingrained in my mind now to kind of look before I make that right turn, because sometimes cyclists come flying up beside you. So I'm not saying it's always the person in the car who isn't being responsible. The person on the bike has to be responsible too. Yeah. And that's another thing I would suggest to folks. If you take that plunge, make sure you become aware of what the requirements and rules are for you on a bike on the street, because you have some responsibility. You can't just jump out there and expect cars to stop because you want to go by. Yeah. You have to navigate that bike just like you would a car and obey the rules of the road, as they say.
Right. Okay, yeah, you were just talking about, riding around Belle Isle and stuff. Where are other places that we're located in Detroit, so where are other places that are good for Detroiters to ride? And to expand on that, even outside Detroit, you were talking about trails. But in Detroit right now.
Yeah, to start off with, in Detroit, like I said, Belle Isle is, I would say, my number one recommendation for biking, no matter what type of biking you're doing, whether it's casual biking or road racing. Belle Isle is equipped to handle any type of bikers, and it's safe. Rouge Park on the west side of Detroit, they recently added some limited bike lanes through Rouge Park, and that will lead you into Hines Drive, which goes out through Wayne County. And Hines Drive is a little hillier. For the most part, Detroit is flat, and if you're not an experienced cyclist, you want to ride where it's flat to begin with anyway. So Rouge Park, Palmer Park, you can ride through Palmer Park, and they actually have a group that rides weekly, and I'll talk about some of the other groups as well. But Palmer Park, Rouge Park, Belle Isle. As you get out of the city, the metro parks, when you go out to either Kensington or Lower Huron, all of those parks and some of the others, they all have paths that go throughout the park. And you can get a good, at least 5 miles on paths through those parks without looping back. And so you can start with, and you're in a safe enclosed environment, so you're not out on the roads and get turned around, get lost or anything. It's a nice ride on paved routes, so you're not riding over gravel and all of that.
Yeah, especially with the streets in Detroit. This is pothole city. Fix the damn streets.
Well, it's just northern climate, man.
Yeah, I know, but like you said,
it's a consideration though, because if you're not in one of the parks and you're out there on the streets, that's again a consideration as to what type of bike you have, and if you're riding on the streets, particularly if you're by yourself, make sure you have the proper tools, because I hate to tell you, you're going to get a flat. If you're riding in the city of Detroit on the streets, you're going to get a flat. So, and people have asked me before, they said, so what happens when you get a flat? What do? You change it. Just like if you're in a car, you get a flat. Now, I will say, for those of you out there who are AAA members, they have a bike service, and it's happened to me before. If you get out somewhere and you have an issue with your bike, whether it's a flat or for some other reason, and you're not equipped to change it, or you've got some kind of mechanical issue with your bike, if you're a AAA member, you just call them. They'll come. You tell them you're on a bike, you need service.
That's good to
They'll
know.
load your bike up in the pickup truck, take you back home or whatever your coverage allows for. But they'll get you, somewhere safe. Even if you say, hey, I need to get to this bike shop, if it's within your allotted mileage on your coverage.
Now, will they repair the tire, or you just have
No, they provide transportation to get you somewhere safe.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that
with
either.
AAA since 1990.
And how many flats have you had on your bike?
You got to ride the bike first.
Oh, wow.
You got to ride the bike
you gotta
first.
ride. You gotta ride it. That's right. Yeah, you gotta ride it first.
Yeah, there's a lot of different places you could ride in the city, and there's some trails and parks on the east side of Detroit as well. I'm more familiar with the west side, but pretty much any other larger parks, there's some kind of biking infrastructure in the park where you can ride safely.
Okay, let's talk about what you're wearing right now. You came prepared to go riding, and you and I talked a couple days ago at your place before we talked about you coming on. And you, first of all, once we talk about this, I want you to talk about the gear. But you were talking about how to pedal. You're saying most people just push, and you were talking about pulling. Talk about that, because, I don't see how you pull. I'm just pushing down the pedal, and I don't get it.
Well, we did talk specifically about, we started talking about cycling and pedaling technique. There are different techniques in a couple different aspects of cycling and riding your bike, from pedaling to how you turn a corner. There's all little minute techniques, just as, and I happen to know you're an avid bowler, just as they are in bowling. There are little things that you are looking to do technically correct.
Right.
And the same holds true for cycling, pedaling being one of them. So what we started talking about had to do with what we refer to as clipping in, meaning the pedals on the bike allow you, with certain shoes, cycling shoes, you can lock your foot into the pedal. So you are connected to that bike. And people say, why would you want to do that?
Yeah,
if I got to stop or get off, it's easy enough to unclip. And it's a skill that you practice. But why would you want to do that in the first place is what people ask. So the technique and the science behind that is, as you're pedaling, just a regular bike with regular pedals and shoes, if you stop and think about it, for the most part, you're push as you're cycling. You're just pushing that pedal. And you don't realize that there is a more efficient way to just handle that particular process of pedaling. But as you're pushing and constantly pushing left, right, you're working one particular set of muscles, your thighs, the top side. And if you ride far enough, you'll notice that's what hurts. That's where it's sore. When we talk about clipping in, what that forces you to do, or what you should think about doing while you're clipped in, as you rotate the pedal with one leg, as it gets to, if you think about a clock, as it gets to about the 5 o'clock position with your foot, then you have to mentally think about it. So you pull from 5 o'clock to 12, pull up in a circle. And you, initially your mindset is, I'm pushing down. But once your mindset is, I want to pedal in a circular motion, thinking, it's really a mental thing until your body gets accustomed to that. You're pulling and pushing, in a circle.
Now, to do that, you have to have those particular shoes and the clips and so forth like that.
It helps if you are clipped in. If you aren't clipped in with those particular type of pedals and shoes, if you try to do that, most of the time your foot's going to slip off the pedal.
Right.
And that's the other advantage of clipping in. You're not going to slip off. And we all might remember when we were younger, those bikes, the pedals, if your foot slipped off and that pedal hit you in the shin, you're going to feel it. It was the old metal pedals. You get cut across the leg.
Yeah. You're dating yourself now. I don't think they make those anymore.
Oh, no, they do, but I wouldn't advise you get them. And again, it all depends on what type of riding you're doing. If you're riding as a commuter, let's say, and when I say commuter, not necessarily to work, but there are a lot of people in Detroit who've made their bike their primary mode of transportation. I know of a few friends who they own a car, but they rarely drive it. Their life allows them to do most of what they need to do on the bike. Mm-hmm. And some of them, of course, have several bikes because they've got one in the winter and one in the summer. But that whole issue of the different type of pedals and shoes, and people look at that and go, "Oh, that's a pro," and not necessarily. And
well, you look like a pro. I mean,
Yeah.
the way you're dressed right now, you know.
well, now, and I know your listeners can't see me, but what I'm wearing, this is a typical cycling kit, and it's called a kit. They're biking shorts and a spandex top, and it might look okay, and I hope I look okay, but for the most part, you see people doing that if they're not a professional cyclist.
Yeah,
there's a.
I wouldn't want to see Keith in one of those.
You wouldn't want to see yourself in one of those.
Now, I'm going to talk about the kit for a minute, and I'm going to tell you the most important piece of your cycling gear. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but just to finish up with the kit. So the reason we wear this is it's comfort and, again, efficiency. Think about this. If I put on a pair of baggy shorts and I'm out there riding,
yeah, I was going to ask you about it.
It's flop, 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 flop.
So it gives more wind resistance.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's a little drag. If I'm out there and it's a little cooler, you want something long on. But if you get out there with blue jeans or any kind of long pants, there's a risk that the bottom of that leg is going to get caught in the chain. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that happen. So it's a little bit of a safety issue, but the whole cycling kit has to do with comfort and efficiency. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't want to ride into the wind and have more drag because I got clothes that are weighing me down. And you have to be comfortable when you're riding. You want to ride in something that's not so uncomfortable that it's causing a problem when you're riding. But
so this is a really, I'm gonna tell you, it's a really, pretty beautiful outfit. Nice orange, white, and black. But on the thing that's caught my attention is on these. You got a kind of like a emblem that says Selma to Montgomery March and 55. Is that somewhere you rode or?
This was actually
talk about some of the places you've been to ride.
Yeah, I ride in a lot of places around the Detroit area, Metro Detroit, but I've ridden in other states and cities too. This particular jersey, this is a commemorative jersey that was given to me. I didn't actually ride this ride, but
that is a ride.
Yeah, it's a ride from Selma. It commemorates the Selma March, and this was done in 2020, celebrating I believe it was the 50th year or 60th. And so there were a number of cyclists who rode that route, and it was sponsored by a group there in Alabama. And if I'm not mistaken, that this particular ride happens every year. This just happened to have been a significant anniversary of the Selma event. But a lot of the jerseys you'll see, either it's a particular club, and I happen to belong to probably 4 different clubs in the city. And we all have our own kits.
Detroit? Mm-hmm. There are many clubs in Detroit.
Oh, there are many more than that. And the thing I should mention is when you hear someone talking about riding in a club, in a cycling club, many of them, it's open to all riders. They have different groups. One of the clubs I belong to, the Metro 313 Cyclones, if I can throw a little plug in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Major Taylor Detroit chapter of the Major Taylor Cycling Club. And just to talk a little bit about the history of that, Major Taylor was a black cyclist back in the late 1800s. He was truly the first black professional athlete champion. And he championed cycling back in late 1800s, 1890s. And if you stop and think about that, that was quite an accomplishment at that time, just because it was a black man in a sport that was predominantly occupied by white males. And let's just say he wasn't very well received, but he took care of business, and he was a world champ.
And foreigners also, not necessarily all Americans, but foreigners. A lot of foreigners.
He rode and won championships.
He was probably the only black person out there.
Yeah. And he won championships worldwide. I would encourage you and your listeners to just go look up Major Taylor, the cyclist. And he did some amazing things. But that's one of the clubs. There's Biking Belle Isle, Major Taylor, Detroit. There's 3 or 4 informal clubs. But you
Like
can
Slow
find
Roll.
it's slow roll, different groups. There's a bike shop, the Hub. They sponsor a ride weekly on Wednesdays.
Yeah, they're downtown, right?
Yeah, they're on Cass, just in the Cass corridor, just north of 75, and they sponsor a ride weekly. But yeah, if you're looking to get out and ride and you don't feel comfortable riding alone, or you want to ride with a group, if you jump on Facebook, you'll find there's so many different groups. Detroit Bikes. Wayne State has training rides that they're conducting right now every Tuesday, and they're training for their signature event they hold every year. This year it's going to be held in July, and they hold this ride, the Barrador Ride, which is a fundraising ride for scholarships at Wayne State, and they have different distances you can ride in their signature event that range from 20 miles all the way up to 100. So over the summer, they have training rides to help you get ready for one of those rides if you choose to do it in July. And everybody probably has heard about the signature event in Detroit that's held in August. They host several events. Wow, it's escaping me right now. But there's a big event in the latter part of the summer that cycles throughout the city of Detroit at a slow pace, and it's more of a touring ride. So there are different types of groups, different type of events. We talked a little bit about the kids, and I want to mention this before I forget it. I said I talk about the most important part of your cycling gear. Can either one of you guess what that might be?
The helmet.
Amen. There you go.
Yeah, and that's funny because when we grew up, helmets were basically non-existent. They were for toddlers and little kids. You got on a bike with a helmet, you called a sissy, and nobody rides.
Right.
If you
It
fail,
looks
just
funny.
fail.
You look weird and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That. Let me tell you, I know of people who have had falls with a helmet, and I would say it saved their life.
Really?
There's one particular young lady, and she is still kind of dealing with some of the injuries that she had with from an incident where there was a truck involved.
Oh.
And she took the worst of that, but she had a helmet on. I was riding with someone 2 years ago, and she just hit some wet leaves, and the bike went down. She landed on her head, but she had a helmet on. The helmet cracked. And I said, wow, if you didn't have the helmet on, guess what would have been cracked?
Yeah.
So, and it's just like a safety belt. They tell you, if you jump in your car, you're running to the corner store, put your safety belt on. Put your seatbelt on, rather. And I say the same thing about a helmet. I'm just going to ride around the block a couple times, see how it feels. Put a helmet on. They're not expensive, and it's not really an overstatement when I say that helmet could save your life.
Right. And that's little people too.
Oh yeah,
Everybody.
don't let your child go out there without a helmet on. Even if they're riding up and down the sidewalk in front of your house, they should have a helmet on, because stranger things have happened, and they may fall, or God forbid, somebody in a car finds their way up on the sidewalk, and those type of things have happened and can happen. So if anything we talk about today doesn't resonate with anybody, let that sit with you, regardless of what kind of bike you get, regardless of what you're wearing. Put a helmet on. Yeah. And they're not expensive.
Yeah, because I when I ride, I don't have a helmet, so maybe I better get one because I'm up in age. But let me ask you, we talked again at your house, and you were talking about the different levels, like A class, C class, and can you explain those, and how do you grow, move up in there? Because I would be what, and what would Jeff be in as compared to what you are?
Yeah. Those aren't universal, but what I was speaking of, and this is a good way for you to measure where you're at with riding. So in one or two of the particular clubs I ride in, you get different levels of riders. And by levels, I mean different skill sets, different experience with riding. So if you have someone who doesn't ride as fast or as far, there's a group for them. At the other end of the spectrum, if you've got experienced cyclists who have been riding for 30 years and they've been road racing and they're riding 25 miles an hour and they're riding 100 miles, that may be the A group. The D group would be the touring group that's just, out to have a fun bike ride and leisurely, and then there are groups in between. So it can be measured and differentiated based on the distance they're going to ride, or the speed, or a combination. They're usually it's based on speed primarily. It's like, well, if you ride 10 to 12 miles an hour, you may be in the D group. If you ride 13 to 15, you may be in the C group. 16 to 18 miles an hour, the B group, and above 18 is usually an A group.
And that's pretty fast to be on a bike.
Yeah, and as you listen to that, you may not be able to comprehend just how fast that is or how slow that is on a bike. But if you stop and think about, you've seen these pelotons of riders, these groups of riders going through a park or down the street, and there's maybe 10 or 12 of them. They're all kitted out with their outfits, and they're flying down the road.
Hauling ass, yeah.
As a big group, and they're just flying down the road. Those are probably A group riders. And if you envision what you've seen, as you've seen them go down, they're probably doing about 22, 23 miles an hour. But if you look at them, 22, 23 miles an hour in a car seems slow to you.
Yeah.
But if you look at them, see how fast they're going, that's 20 plus, and that's usually an A group. So if you're out there and you're pedaling and you got a pretty decent speed, you may not be an A group, but you're probably doing 14 to 15 miles an hour. Another part of the cycling gear that you may, if you are truly interested in becoming more knowledgeable about, okay, so how fast am I going? There are little bike computers you can put on your bike, and it'll measure how fast you're going. You can look down and see and monitor your speed, and that's a good way to measure how you're growing. Because if you go out tomorrow and you look and go, okay, I'm doing 8 miles an hour. Over time, that you may start out and that seems hard, that seems tough. But the more you ride, the easier that'll get. So you'll get to a point, you say, okay, now I'm going to try to get up to 10 miles an hour and maintain it for a little bit. So you can measure how you're doing if you're so inclined.
And the fastest that you have ridden is
well, I'm more of a distance rider, but I think my average speed that I can maintain, we can all sprint, and go for a block and go, okay, I'm done. But what can you maintain for a longer distance is what you really want to get at. And I'd say I'm probably about 17.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
About 17.
Okay, well, we're running out of time, Rich. We want to thank you for coming. But before we split, a lot of people run, and that's high impact on your body.
Yes.
How do they compare between biking and cycling outside of the impact? There's probably no impact with cycling.
I wouldn't say that. I think one of the bigger differences is on the knees, and this is why I don't run. And people say, you ride 100 miles, but you can't run 5 miles. I choose not to unless something is chasing me as an incentive. But when you think about cycling and you number one, take any health issues you have into consideration and cycle appropriately. Don't try to be riding 22 miles an hour unless you're cleared by your doctor if you've got an issue. Be conscious of your own body, your own capabilities. Sometimes people get caught up in, I'm going to keep up with him. And your body is telling you, fool, you better back off. Right. So listen to your body. That's the first thing. But no, when I compare running and cycling, you are going to feel it when you're cycling a lot, sometimes in the knees, your back, your shoulders. A lot of that has to do with the bike fit. It all circles back to the bike fit. If your handlebars aren't properly placed, you're going to feel it in your shoulders and arms. And if you go in and get fitted, they'll look at you on the bike and say, okay, we're going to move your handlebars in or back. And you'll notice a big difference. I had that done about 3 years ago. I would come in from shorter rides and my shoulders would ache, my elbows, and someone said, you need to just go get fitted. And, they measured all the angles of how your elbows are, how your knees are. And he moved some things, made all the difference. Even if you're riding 2-3 miles, you want to be comfortable on the bike. But listen to your body. You get out there and you start feeling good. And when you start realizing, okay, I'm getting a little tired, you'll know when to back off.
Okay. Yeah. All right. One more thing. Yeah. I would just like for you to just give us a little short recap of what people, the novice, should look for when getting that bike again and getting out on the road and enjoying this summer and this beautiful weather.
Well, there are a few things that I would say are most important. I'm going to go back to the number one thing. I don't care what you're riding, ride wearing a helmet. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. And you can pick those up at a department store, bike shop, whatever the case may be. If you're getting out as a novice and you're getting into biking and wanting to get into biking, look at a bike that's going to be comfortable for you. And they have what are known as cruisers and possibly a trike. The bike is most likely going to be aluminum. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get a good bike.
Because they can be expensive.
They can be expensive. And I've seen, people who, of course, the professionals pay for it, but people who aren't professionals, but they've really gotten into cycling, and that's their thing. I've seen people pay as much as you would for a good used car for their bikes. But it depends on how much that becomes your passion. Some people, they're into cars and they have a stable of cars that they're working on and fixing. Some people have bikes and some people have a lot of bikes. But for the person that's getting into cycling, find a bike that is affordable, comfortable, and properly fitted for you. And then find someone that either is already cycling or wants to join you in cycling. Safety. If you're riding in the city, make sure the bike is properly fitted for when you're riding. Sometimes you get caught, you had a flat, next thing you know it's dark, you're 10 miles from home. Even if you think there's a chance you're going to get caught in the dark, make sure you have proper lights and enough visibility items on the bike, reflectors and things like that, because you're out here in traffic. Safety is the biggest concern, but you consider how you're going to ride, where you're going to ride, and talk with someone to help you with what type of bike should I get. Start with, this is what I plan on doing. This is where I plan on riding. What type of bike should I get? That's a good place to start. Don't look at a bike that you see somebody riding, go, man, that's pretty, I want to get that bike. And it just won't work for you if it isn't built for the type of riding you plan on doing.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rich. That's real informative. And, I think I'm going to get out on my bike. You and I always talk about it.
And do they have helmets for size? What?
Your head's bigger than mine, yeah. It is. Your body's bigger than mine. Your head's bigger than mine. Your mouth is bigger than mine.
They have safety equipment to suit everyone. I'll leave it at that. All right. I'll leave it at that. Well, I look forward to seeing you all out there riding with you. And, get out there and enjoy the bikes, everybody. Get out there and do what you love doing as a kid. It's still just as much fun.
All right.
There you go. You heard it from Richard Summersett. He's an avid cyclist. And we thank you for coming, Rich.
Thank you.
And we get out there, guys. Exercise. Enjoy this day. Enjoy the ride. I'm Keith Butler.
I'm Jeff Lowe.
I'd like to thank you for listening to The Hook. And remember,
hey, if they ask you, where'd you get that information from? Just tell them that I caught it on The Hook.
There you have it, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.